It's your birthday today, Marga. We have received the 7th and final member. And with that, I bid you farewell, Marga. Marga stopped breathing and eventually died on the spot. Marga, then 10 years old, was helping her mom and grandpa move out of their childhood home. 9 months ago, her grandma passed away, leaving her grandfather with only his pension to support the family. The antiques that Marga's grandparents had accumulated over the years required careful packing and transport, particularly that old and rusty mirror. Marga's grandpa arrives and tells them that breaking a mirror brings bad luck for 7 years, and if somebody should break the mirror, they will suffer the most horrific fate imaginable in hell. Marga's mother told her not to listen to her grandfather because superstition is nonsense. While Marga ran around and played, her parents and grandfather persisted in finishing off the moving process. Marga's attention was always drawn back to the mirror in the living room, no matter where she was in the home or how far away she was playing. But Marga was careless. She accidentally dropped the antique mirror and watched it break before her eyes. She gazed with anticipation as the glass cascaded from the frame like a waterfall of crystal, but her delight quickly turned to fear. Marga picked up a broom and a dustpan and tidied up the shattered glass. As she ascended the stairs, she poured the mess upon the frame. Marga reached the edge of the thick rug once she reached the empty packed attic. She dug out the shattered mirror from under the rug with ease. She hoped and prayed that her mother and grandfather wouldn't be able to discern the difference when she laid the rug down, as she herself couldn't. As if nothing had occurred, she strolled back downstairs to resume her games. In the end, after her mother finished packing their things, she recalled something. "Dad, what happened to the mirror?" She questioned her dad in bewilderment. What could have possibly happened to it while it was right there? When confronted, Marga lied and told her mom and grandpa she didn't know anything. Marga was an expert liar who never got caught. Her grandparents were so worn out that they didn't bother to investigate anymore. In any case, it was just one less thing to pack. And the mirror was an old, ugly one that nobody liked anyhow. So what was the harm in not worrying about it? After a year or so, Grandpa moved into a new house and nobody remembered the event with the mirror. Marga's 11th birthday was coming up. There had been a few peculiar occurrences since then. Marga's dog died, as well as all her succeeding pets. She never had a pet alive for more than a week. Another peculiar phenomenon was Marga's mom's health. She suddenly fell ill and developed all sorts of sicknesses. On the day of Marga's birthday, the phone rang. "This is the start of 7. A mysterious voice warned them. Her mother thought it was a prank call, so she hung up the phone. The phone then rang once more, and the man on the other line reported that Marga's dad died in a car accident. Marga's mom was hysterical. There was no hope left for her. That year, plants around the house withered and died. Even wild grass didn't get a chance to live on the lawn. There were no insects, molds, nothing. The house was a barren wasteland. Even fresh vegetables dry out the moment they are brought inside, especially near Marga. There were sad events all throughout that year, but then Marga turned 12. "This is the 2nd of 7. The menacing voice on the phone said. Marga's mom slapped the phone down on the hook, and within seconds it rang again. John, Marga's uncle, was a soldier, and he had been killed in action. The next year had a series of even more tragic events. Cancer had spread to Marga's older sister. A drive-by gunshot killed Marga's pregnant cousin and her unborn child. When Marga turned 13, she heard a foreboding voice say, "The bear number comes in 3 out of a possible 7. The phone then rang once more. Every year on Marga's birthday, she would receive a call announcing deaths in the family. Marga had already lost her whole family by the time she reached 16. Her entire family had been cut down by unexplained deaths: her grandmother, grandpa, aunt, sister, cousin, and mother. Now Marga had lost her parents and was living in a foster home where she was emotionally disturbed. On her 17th birthday, Marga's eyes fluttered open uncomfortably in her bed, and she heard a raspy, ominous voice blow around her as if it traveled in the air in her bedroom, saying, "It's your birthday today, Marga. We have received the 7th and final member, and with that, I bid you farewell, Marga." Marga stopped breathing and eventually died on the spot. Nobody can explain her cause of death, not even the doctors. Marga suffered terrible losses in life as she watched her whole family die before her. Thinking about it, was it the broken mirror's curse that made Marga's life a living hell? That we are not entirely sure. The deaths are unexplainable and so peculiar, you would think otherwise. So next time you break a mirror, make sure you have more than 7 souls before you in order to survive.
He put his hand on the knob, then looked back over his shoulder for a second before turning it and opening the door. A gust of wind came rushing out, blowing past him. Darkness and the same growls like a bunch of dogs all at the time, blew past him, along the hallway, then down the stairs after Ryan. He heard Ryan scream in terror. Marcus walked home from school every day. He and his family just moved here a few weeks ago, and their house was only a few blocks from his school. He always walked past this old abandoned house. The kids at school said it was haunted. They dared him to go in. So, he decided to go into the house and prove that he wasn't afraid. As soon as he entered the house, he could feel a cold chill run down his spine. It felt like someone was watching him. He slowly made his way through the dark hallways, trying not to make any noise. Suddenly, he heard a loud crash coming from upstairs. He nervously went up the stairs, but when he got there he saw nothing but an old broken mirror on the floor. He started to feel uneasy now and decided it was time to leave. As he turned to leave, something caught his eye. There was a door at the end of the hallway, that he would swear hadn't been there before. He slowly approached it and opened it. On the far side of the room was a dark mound of what looked like old clothes. The mound moved slowly and what sounded like several dogs, growling all at once came from it. Marcus turned and ran as fast as he could out of the house. He felt like something was chasing him the entire way out. He didn't stop running until he got home. He told his mom what happened. She said that wasn't a very good idea, but it was probably just a stray dog. Marcus knew what he saw and heard was not just some stray dog. He knew he had encountered something much more sinister in that old abandoned house. Something that was definitely not human. The next day at school, Marcus told the other boys that he had gone into the old house and what he saw and heard in there. They told him he had made it all up. They didn't believe he had gone in there. One of the boys said that he had been in the house several times and there wasn't a door at the end of the hall. The other boys that had been in the house agreed with him. Marcus said, "I'll prove it to you, let's all go there today after school. I'll show them that I hadn't made up anything, and that what I told them was real." When school got out, Marcus and only 2 of the other boys, Matt and Ryan, headed off to the old house. They walked up in front of the old house and Matt told them, "I just remembered, my mom said I had to come straight home today to get my chores done, so you guys will have to tell me about it tomorrow." Matt turned and headed back towards his own house. "I think Matt was just scared," Ryan said. "He's only ever been in the old house once before and he was really freaked out afterward." "Well, let's do it then." They both headed in. The front door would only open enough for them to just squeeze through. It was dim inside, because of the heavy curtains, mostly covering the windows. They both stood there for a minute letting their eyes adjust, then started up the stairs. When they reached the 2nd floor, Marcus looked to the end of the hallway and was surprised to find that there wasn't a door there. That's strange, there was most definitely a door right there, at the end of the hall. Ryan told him, "Yeah, that's what I said, I've been in here lots of times and there has never been a door there. Yesterday, I was downstairs, then I heard a noise coming from up here. I went into this room." He pointed and started walking to the room straight ahead of them. I figured the noise had been this mirror falling and breaking. You mean that mirror hanging on the wall? Ryan pointed to the mirror hanging on the wall to the side. But, it was laying on the floor, broken into pieces yesterday. I guess you made that up too. Ryan turned and headed out of the room. Marcus stared at the mirror, and the floor in front of it for a few seconds, then turned and followed him out. Just as he stepped out of the room's doorway, a loud boom, then crash, came from the room behind them. Both boys spun around instantly, then looked around the door. The mirror was laying on the floor, broken into pieces just like he had seen before. Ryan, that is exactly the same sound, and the mirror is laying exactly as it was yesterday. Did you make that fall, just to try to scare me? Ryan said with a somewhat trembling voice. No! I swear, I didn't touch it. They both backed out of the room, then Ryan hit him on the shoulder and pointed down the hallway. There at the end of the hallway was a door, that they both agreed had not been there a few minutes ago. The door, it just appeared. We both know that door wasn't there before, right? Marcus asked. What are you doing? Ryan asked as Marcus started heading down the hallway towards the door. I've got to see if it is in there again. The dog or whatever it was. Come on, Marcus told him. No way, I'm not going in there, Ryan said as he turned and ran down the stairs. Marcus slowly made his way down the hallway to the door. He put his hand on the knob, then looked back over his shoulder for a second before turning it and opening the door. A gust of wind came rushing out, blowing past him. Darkness and the same growls like a bunch of dogs all at the time, blew past him, along the hallway, then down the stairs after Ryan. He heard Ryan scream in terror, then nothing. Ryan! He called and started running along the hallway to the head of the stairs. He looked down, but saw no sign of Ryan, or whatever the thing was that chased him. He hurried down the stairs, and out the door. He got to the street out front of the house, but didn't see Ryan anywhere. Ryan! He called, but got no answer. He must have run as fast as he could straight home like I did yesterday, he thought. He quickly headed home too, and thought of what they had both just seen. Well, now the other boys will believe us, since we both seen the same thing. He didn't mention to his mom that they had gone back to the old house. The next day, when Marcus got to school, he looked for Ryan, so they could talk about what happened at the old house the day before. In first period, Ryan wasn't there. But what was really strange, Emily was sitting at Ryan's desk. Not only that, but Sarah was sitting at Emily's desk. The more I looked around, the more I noticed that several people were sitting at desks they didn't normally sit at. After first period, Matt came up to him in the hall. Sorry, I left you hanging there by yourself yesterday. Did you go back in again? By myself? Yeah, Ryan and I went in and it was freaky. Ryan wasn't in first period, have you seen him? Matt looked at me with a puzzled expression. Who is Ryan? Ryan. You, me, and Ryan all went to the old house together yesterday. Dude? Did you fall and hit your head in that house yesterday? I don't know anybody named Ryan. Well, I got to go, I'll catch you at lunch, later. Matt headed off to his next class. I just stood there and stared at him heading away. He doesn't know who Ryan is? He shook his head and hurried down the hall to his next class. He must be messing with me. But he wasn't, the next few classes were much the same, people sitting at the wrong desks. I brought up Ryan's name to a few different people, and got the same kind of responses that Matt gave me. Who was Ryan? Nobody knew, or remember anything about Ryan. Except, me.
She served a bloody steak and told me that it was healthier that way. I was not a fan of rare meat, but what bothered me the most was what I saw in the mashed potato. There were hair and nails, and it reeked. When I tried to excuse myself, she got mad and forced me to sit still. I ended up eating all of it, despite my will not to. As if some dark force entered my body and forced me to. All the while I was devouring her concoction, she was laughing hysterically. My mom was a fine young woman who fell in love with my dad. She was beautiful, kind, smart, and almost perfect in all aspects. She could have been the best in her chosen field, but she chose to stay and support my dad. My dad, on the other hand, was a normal guy who had mediocre ambitions in life. He loved art and dreamed to become an artist someday, but he lacked talent and grit, so he stayed as a clerk for decades. I remember my parents being happy during their first few years together. Those years were golden until my dad cheated on my mom. Since then, my mom got so depressed that she denied any light bulbs in the house. Our house reeked of urine and poop, while my dad's new family enjoyed trips to Disneyland. I saw how my mother changed from sweet to bitter, then to nothing at all. She stopped going out and taking showers. She lost her friends, her relatives' affection, but not my love. I loved my mother for what she was, and for that, I hated my father for hurting her, for leaving us, and for becoming happy with someone else. Our life became stagnant chaos where home became a rancid refuge. But it was okay because I was with her, and she was with me. When I was 18, I got into an accident and I was in a coma for a year. When I woke up, all I could ever think about was my mother. Where was she? Was she fine? Who was with her? But she was alright. Even better, when I got back home, the house was spotlessly clean and bright. All the light bulbs were back and she was happy again. She would prepare sumptuous meals every day and every night. Our house was like an open banquet. For the longest time, my mom is finally happy and I am happy. But there were a few strange things that I noticed after I woke up from my coma. First, although the house was clean, it smelled of sulfur. I asked my mother about it, and she told me it was one of the cleaning agents she used. Second, my mother had darker teeth and gums, as well as black nails. I thought maybe it was because of her poor hygiene during her depressive state, so I never really asked her about it. Third, we always had meat even though she never goes out to buy some. And lastly, her smile. Her face would slightly morph into something else I am too afraid to continue looking at. But she was my mother, and I loved her. So everything's okay. That's what I thought. One night, she served a bloody steak and told me that it was healthier that way. I was not a fan of rare meat, but what bothered me the most was what I saw in the mashed potato. There were hair and nails, and it reeked. When I tried to excuse myself, she got mad and forced me to sit still. I ended up eating all of it despite my will not to. As if some dark force entered my body and forced me to. All the while I was devouring her concoction, she was laughing hysterically and calling random names. I can still remember the sensation of gnawing on those crispy nails and fibrous hair. That night, I locked myself in my room and wondered whose nails and hair were those. As much as I want to vomit, my body would not want me to. As if something has left a clenching fist inside me and I lost all control over my body. Every day became hell as my mother would force me to eat disgusting insects and human body parts. Whose parts I did not know as my mind failed to fathom the dreadful situation I was in back then. Every night, she would visit me in my room and whisper incomprehensible words. She would sing, laugh, and cry. Eventually, our house was stripped of its immaculate cleanliness and revealed its true nature. I was living in a dilapidated house only eating insects and dirt, with occasional raw meat on the side. It was an atrocious nightmare. I eventually got sick from all the objects that I've digested. Patrolling police found me and brought me to the hospital. I later found out that my mother died weeks after my accident. my father's new family also went missing. No one has heard of them ever since. Some said that I was enchanted by a demon. Others believed that it was my mother's pitiful soul who kept me in trance. They had to operate and remove all the nasty objects in my stomach so I could survive. Up to this day, I am not entirely sure what happened back then. But one thing is for sure. Even after her death, my mother wanted to take care of me. Even if it meant she'd asked a demon to do it on her behalf. I still miss my mom. But that was a long time ago. I rarely talk about that story, but since you asked, would you like your steak bloody? It's healthier that way.